The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom. Rational self-interest. The radical. And fundamental principles. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Friday, October 17th. As you can see, I am not in my regular office. I am traveling, so I'm in a hotel. Let's see how the video goes, how the video and audio goes. Right now, I see some jumpiness. Any commentary, anybody on the chat, just verify that the video is good or not. Is it breaking up? I'm seeing some breakup. Anyway, let me know in the chat if you've got, it's jumpy. Picture is a little jumpy. God. All right, give me. Let's see. What's that? That is that. All right. Picture's multi-dimensional. Video, artifacts, and sound seems low. Sound seems low, guys? Sound I can increase. All right. Is that better sound, but you're still getting jumpiness? God. Okay, video will disappear. Okay, let's see. Video will disappear again. Let's see if that makes a difference. All right, we're going to have to just live with it. I'm not sure what to do about the jumpiness of the video, but I will have to deal with it before we before I travel next week, which is a longer trip. Okay, so thanks for joining me. As I said, I'm in Los Angeles traveling. Sound seems okay. Video is jumpy, flashing, but tolerable. Video back, but less jumpy. Who didn't pray for the Wi-Fi gods? Audio, but no video. For a second there was no video. Yes, I disconnected, hoping that would help. I see it hasn't. Let me try one more thing. What's that? Let me try one more thing. Try to get video will disconnect for a second. Hello. Okay, do we have video back? No, we do not have video back. Okay, let me just do this. All right, I think that has solved it. Good. Okay, I know what to do as I travel. That's good. I'm glad I caught that. All right, this will work for sure, and it worked. All right, I apologize everybody for that, so let's jump in to today's topics. As I think you all know, the UK in Britain. Football is a big deal. Football in the sense of soccer. Football matches, it's almost like a religion in the United Kingdom. People are dedicated fans. They become incredibly passionate. And some football games, you get some violence, and the police are well trained and pretty effective at shutting down the violence. The games get very rowdy, but the rowdiness, for the most part, again, with the exception of when it gets violence, is all done in good fun, as English football fans are rowdy. What can we say? Well, not, I guess, when it comes to Israelis or Jews visiting. There was supposed to be there's going to be a match between Aston Villa, which is the team locally in Birmingham. Birmingham is the second largest city in the United Kingdom. There's supposed to be a match between Aston Villa and Maccabi Tel Aviv, a Tel Aviv team, as part of, I get, the European Club League, or whatever it's called. The city of Birmingham has decided that Tel Aviv fans will not be permitted to come to the stadium and watch the game. This is a statement by Ayub Khan, who is an MP, member of parliament from Birmingham. He says, "I welcome the Safety Advisory Group's decision." This is the Safety Advisory Group in Birmingham, to advise that Maccabi Tel Aviv fans will not be permitted to attend Villa Park on the 6th of November. From the moment that the match was announced, it was clear that there were latent safety risks that even our capable security and police authorities would not be able to fully manage. With so much hostility and uncertainty around the match, it was only right to take drastic measures. Sports entertainment events should be enjoyed by all, regardless of their race, ethnicity, and background. But there are rare instances where the political dynamics surrounding such spectacles cannot be ignored, and where drastic action must be taken to ensure the safety of fans, players, staff, and local residents. I'm glad that this reality has been acknowledged in this issue, and I am grateful to the various teams and everybody else for their work to listen to our communities concerned. Now is the time to ease tensions, set aside political differences, and focus on football once more. So the solution to latent problems, I guess, which I guess you would think are caused by the fans of Maccabi Tel Aviv. I mean, I think this suggests that the fans of Maccabi Tel Aviv were going to come to Birmingham and riot and demonstrate and put everybody at risk. And yeah, I mean, if the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans are that dangerous and that disruptive, then maybe they should be banned for the sake of the safety of Birmingham. But of course, that is not the problem. The problem is not at all the fans of Maccabi Tel Aviv. The problem is thugs, Muslim thugs, supposedly, or one supposes, thugs who would hunt down the fans from Tel Aviv. The problem is that the Muslim community in Birmingham is not willing to let fans from Israel come to participate in a soccer game, in a football game. Iqbal Muhammad, another member of parliament in Britain, says thank you to all who put the safety of Aston Villa fans. I mean, Tel Aviv fans were going to beat up the Aston Villa fans. That's why they were coming to the UK, to beat up the opposition fans. Really? Thank you for putting the safety of Aston Villa fans, Birmingham residents, and the British public above the Zionist and political pressures to let Israeli hooligans and terrorists run riot in our country. I mean, these are members of parliament. These are not just arbitrary people. These are members of the British parliament. These are lying bastards, lying monsters. Maccabi Tel Aviv fans were not going to come and riot in Birmingham any more than they rioted in Amsterdam last year when primarily Muslim hooligans ran them through the streets and beat them up. And these hooligans, it's been shown and documented, were planning these attacks on Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. It wasn't anything the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans said or did. This was planned. It was a Jew hunt. They were hunting Jews in the streets of Amsterdam. That hadn't been done since the 1940s. And now we've got members of parliament, Muslim members of parliament, blaming the victim, blaming the Jew. And the solution is a solution that England knows well from its very, very distant history. And that is the easiest way to have peace, the easiest way to not suffer the consequence of anti-Semitic violence is to get rid of the Jews. I mean, if we just ban the Jews, if we don't let the Jews in, then we won't have any anti-Semitism and we won't have any violence against Jews because there won't be any Jews. I mean, this was the solution in the, 15th century, I think, where Jews were banned from England for 200 years. 200 years, there were no Jews in England. When Shakespeare wrote in the 16th century about Shylock, the Jewish moneylender, he had never met a Jew in his life because there were no Jews in London. So instead of dealing with those who would inflict violence, instead of protecting people coming to celebrate and to enjoy a football game, the solution is to blame the victim and to ban the victim from participating. Yeah, I mean, there'd be no anti-Semitism in the world. There'd be no hatred of Jews in the world if we just got rid of all the Jews. That's the solution. I mean, that's a solution people have been advocating for a very, very, very long time. I'm sure, by the way, that none of this has anything to do with the fact that a Birmingham Islamic preacher, Astar Rashid, has told his followers that the Muslims of Birmingham should show no mercy to the football fans from Tel Aviv. And that as a consequence, the British police has decided they can't protect them. So the British police can no longer protect people inside Britain because they fear the wrath, the violence of Islamists. Now, somebody like this, you could say somebody calling on his followers to show no mercy to the football fans from Tel Aviv, that sounds like incitement to violence to me and a basis by which this person should be arrested. I mean, I know that the British police are very, very busy arresting people for putting up British flags and arresting people for criticizing Muslims and Islam, but actual incitement for violence, no, nobody cares. The Brits don't care anymore. Another imam in Birmingham is teaching how to stone a woman to death, which is the appropriate, according to Islam, the appropriate punishment for things like adultery and I'm sure many other crimes. But this is Islamism, complete, fully formed, being taught, being preached, being articulated, being incited inside the United Kingdom. And this is what the UK government will do nothing about. Instead, let's just ban the Jews. Don't allow the Jews in. That's a much simpler solution than actually deal with the problem. But the reality is that as long as you don't deal with this problem, it's not just the Jews, it's women, it's Christians, it's everybody who not only will not convert to Islam, but will not follow these bastards' interpretation of that religion. This is a clear enemy from within. I've talked about what needs to be done about this, but this needs to be taken super seriously, and these people need to be, if they're inciting violence, they need to be in jail. If they're advocating for a philosophy, an ideology, and a movement that the United Kingdom should declare it's at war with it, They should all be deported. They should all be gone from there. There shouldn't be a single one of them left. If you cannot resist violence against supporters of an Israeli team, if you're going to engage in that violence, you have no place in the UK. Arrest them, and if they're not citizens, deport them. If they are citizens, throw them in jail for a long time. They'll stop rioting at football if the violence actually results in long sentences. I mean, this is the challenge that the UK faces right now, and really all of Europe faces right now. I mean, the reality is that there are Islamists in the midst of the Islamic communities in all these countries. Now, not all Muslims in these countries are Islamists. Not all Muslims have not been willing to integrate, but some clearly, and whether it's a minority or majority, I don't know, but some clearly are not integrating into British society and are clearly advocating for an ideology and a philosophy based on their religion that is the exact antithesis, the exact opposite of the basis of Western civilization. And what happens is, this is what happens with multiculturalism, right? Is when you go out there and you point out, in Birmingham, Muslim community in Birmingham, parts of the Muslim community in Birmingham are not well integrated. They are not assimilating into British society. People flip out. You're a racist. How dare you say that? Of course they're assimilating. When you look at demographics and you look at Muslims only live together and non-Muslims live together, and there's no crossing the lines. The government, in this case, chooses to ignore that and accuse the people who are making these claims of being racists and then you get the football. Funnily enough, this banning of Israeli fans from Birmingham is so scandalous that even the Labour Party, even the Prime Minister, is outraged by it. Now, we'll see what he does. Here's what he should do. Here's what a courageous Prime Minister of the UK would do. He would, first of all, reverse this and tell the Birmingham police that he will provide whatever protection needed. We will bring police forces in from other cities or towns, or use the military. This is a good use of military to protect from violence. Second, he should invite in a bunch of his Jewish friends. I'm sure he has some. They all have some, so they can claim that some of my best friends are Jewish. Maybe even invite, one of the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans who was going to come to Birmingham is a former hostage who was released earlier this year by Hamas. She was going to come to see the match. He should invite her to come and he should go to the game with his Jewish friends and with this former Hamas hostage, and they should all go and watch the game together. That's what a courageous Prime Minister would do. And that would send a message. That would give a signal. This will not be tolerated in the United Kingdom. We will protect people's rights. We will protect them from violence. We will do what the primary job of government is. The primary job of government is to protect us from violence, from force, from coercion, for other people. We will do that. We will live up to our responsibilities. That's what the Prime Minister of England should do. He's condemned the decision by Birmingham, but he hasn't yet taken the next step. He hasn't taken action. And again, inviting a bunch of his Jewish friends and maybe some Israelis and maybe the Israeli ambassador to the UK, maybe they should all go and watch the game together and have the kind of police protection that you would expect when people like that are there. Anyway, this is the problem, though. You can't criticize it while the Prime Minister is criticizing the decision by the West Midlands, this is the Birmingham police. He's also denying the fact that there's no assimilation. He's denying the fact that there's a problem, that there's a Muslim problem in the UK. This is one of the reasons I don't think the Labour Party is going to survive. It's going to be crushed in the next election The question is going to be, is it going to be the conservatives or is it going to be the party whose name I always forget, the more right-wing party, the more anti-immigration party? I hope it's the conservatives because I like Kemi and I would like to see her have a shot at being prime minister and see what she can get done. Yeah, let's see. Let's see what the prime minister actually does. Let's see what action he takes. By the way, this same Muslim MP defending the ban, Iqbal Muhammad, was also on the parliament floor, defending cousin marriages as part of his culture, and claiming that, banning cousin marriages. Cousin marriages are very common, it turns out, among particularly the Pakistani Muslim community in England, and not only does it's very clannish, it keeps everything internal to the clan, but it's also unhealthy. It creates lots and lots of health issues. Anyway, he's claiming that banning cousin marriages is Islamophobia. Islamophobia is one of those terms that's really powerful. They throw it at you, and I think the response to Islamophobia should be, yeah, I'm afraid of some Muslims, the radical ones, the Islamist ones, the ones who claim they want to kill me, the ones who want to go, beat up the fans of Tel Aviv. I'm afraid of them. Yeah, and there's good reason to be afraid of some Muslims, those Muslims who take their religion seriously. Good reason to be afraid. Okay, since we're in Britain and we're talking about Israel and stuff, this story came to be. So there's been an investigation by, I guess, the official arm that regulates the BBC. The BBC is, of course, a taxpayer-funded news organization in the United Kingdom called Ofcom. And Ofcom has investigated a BBC documentary about Gaza and about Hamas. The documentary claims to follow the life of a 13-year-old kid who is the son of Hamas's deputy minister of agriculture. Ofcom finds, but the documentary is unbelievably biased, and has been, a lot of inaccuracies, and people have made a big deal out of this, and this is why this was investigated. In Ofcom's statement, they find that, quote, our investigation found that the program's failure to disclose that the narrator's father, the person who narrates the documentary's father, held a position in the Hamas-run administration was materially misleading. I guess the 13-year-old, it was never disclosed that he was the son of of a Hamas minister. Quote, it meant that the audience did not have critical information which may have been highly relevant to their assessment of the narrator and the information he provided. This failing had potent potential to erode the significantly high levels of trust that audiences would have placed in a BBC factual program about the Israeli-Gaza war. It goes on to say misleading the audience is, quote, among the most serious breaches that can be committed by the broadcaster. And it is demanding that the BBC acknowledge this and make a formal announcement, which they have. I guess a BBC spokesman said the Ofcom ruling is in line with the finding of the Peter Johnson's review, and there was a significant failing in the documentary in relation to the BBC's editorial guidelines on accuracy, which reflect Rule 2.2 of Ofcom's broadcast code. We have apologized for this, and we accept Ofcom's decision in full. We won't comply with the sanction. So, the British public, on top of everything else, is getting propaganda from the BBC, Hamas propaganda from the BBC, not disclosing that, unbelievable bias. And one of the things that came to my attention is not only that they didn't disclose who this kid was, but there's much more egregious things that happen in this documentary than that. I mean, there are massive distortions of translation. I'll give you just one example. There is a scene where a woman is saying that she is fighting and resisting Israeli forces. Fighting and resisting Israeli forces. That is the English subtitle. But that's not what she says. In Arabic, what she's saying is she's participating in jihad against the Jews. Jihad against the Jews is not fighting and resisting Israeli forces. First of all, it's Jews, not just Israeli forces. And jihad is something much broader, much wider than just fighting. And it's clear why you're fighting, right? Fighting and resisting Israeli forces sounds nationalistic and sounds guerrilla-like and patriotic in some way. Jihad places it where it belongs, a religious war. And yet, over and over and over again, you get these, you get these mistranslations where the BBC removes references to Jews, removes references to jihad. And this is just not just one occurrence, it's more than one. Britain is in trouble not only because of its Muslim population, but because of the people who are supposedly providing British audiences with the news are getting a massively distorted, massively biased view about what is going on in Gaza in the war between Israel and Hamas. All right, not too surprising, I think, to anyone who's been following what's going on in the UK. All right, as we speak, I think, or maybe it's already ended, but generally today there was a meeting between Donald Trump and Zelensky. This has been a meeting that's been planned for a while, and there was a lot of meetings between underlings to set this up, and there was an agreement, and leading up to this, Trump has been talking about providing the Ukrainians with Tomahawk missiles, which could be a game changer in many respects in the war, because it would provide them with a reliable missile that can really hit Russian targets deep inside of Russia, including the facilities where they build the drones, which are beyond the reach of most of the technology the Ukrainians have. Anyway, Trump has been toying with this. Zelensky, I think, came to the United States with the expectation, as has been discussed over the last few weeks, of cutting some kind of deal with the United States where they would receive, where the Ukrainians would receive Tomahawk missiles and maybe other weapon systems. And in exchange, it's been discussed that Ukraine will deliver to the United States drones. That is, Ukrainian drone technology has advanced dramatically. The Ukrainians have been, this war has given them both the impetus, the motivation, but also the experience, the knowledge, the expertise, the ability to test in live conditions in the battlefield drones, and they have become a real superpower when it comes to the production of sophisticated, war-tested, battle-tested drones. And they have offered to provide the United States with drones. The U.S. is behind in drone production, particularly if it ever got into a conflict with China. The Chinese can produce millions of drones very, very quickly. The United States has some drone capabilities, but nowhere near the kind of capabilities that the Chinese have. And Ukraine wants to help and provide the United States with drones. So what you get is a trade of drones for Tomahawk missiles, and it seemed like that was going to be the deal. And Zelensky came to Washington expecting that to happen. But as often happens when Trump seems to be getting closer to Zelensky and favoring Ukraine in some way, Putin calls. And indeed, yesterday, Putin called. The Kremlin says it initiated the phone call, which most reporting does not mention, but the Kremlin initiated a call between Putin and Trump. It was a long call. Trump was actually texting during the call. and where I guess Putin and Trump talked again about the prospects for peace. Putin has an ability to really manipulate Trump. He has Trump's number. I don't know what that number is. I don't know how he does it. I don't know exactly. I mean, I think I know. He sings his praises and he reminds him that he's got nuclear weapons and things like that. But anyway, Putin got on the phone and talked to Trump and did whatever he does, whatever magic he does with Trump to kind of moderate Trump, to make Trump less pro-Ukraine, to make it so that today when Zelensky showed up, tomahawks are still on the table, but it's not a done deal, and maybe, and we'll see. And, Trump was saying we really need the tomahawks in the United States. We've got this threat from China, and we don't have enough tomahawks for us. To launch them from the ground is tricky. It needs a particular launch system. And it's not clear the United States has enough of them and so on. But it seemed like that's the direction they were heading. And then Trump went, well, I'm not sure now. We'll see. We'll talk about it. Zelensky came with expectation, and he was in his best behavior. He wore this really cool, a dark military jacket, which Trump praised as looking good after the commentary about his clothes a year ago. He praised Trump for his Middle East stuff. He praised Trump as a peacemaker. He did all the things that he's being taught now to do in dealing with Trump. It's soothe his ego, play up his ego, play to all of that. And in spite of that, whatever Putin said to Trump yesterday has had a bigger impact. Trump today said, when he's meeting with Zelensky, said, tomahawks are a big deal. But one thing I have to say, we want tomahawks also. We don't want to be giving away things that we need to protect our country. Yesterday and the day before, he was eager to send them over to Ukraine. He says, hopefully we'll be able to get the war over without thinking about tomahawks. I think we're fairly close to that. So Trump is back on, peace is imminent. Peace is imminent. I've got to deal with Putin. It's going to happen. I mean, he hasn't learned anything. He hasn't learned with how Putin plays him. He even acknowledges that Putin is playing him, and Putin tries to play him. But he doesn't actually, it doesn't sink in. So Putin has agreed to meet with Trump in Budapest in, I guess, 2 weeks. So now Trump is saying, well, let's see, we've got a peace plan. Now, the Russians are saying, we're not interested in peace. The Ukrainians are basically saying, we're not going to accept Russia's terms for surrender. Only Trump thinks that there is any chance for peace and is pushing for it. I mean, it's it's crazy. Can I say it's crazy? It's insane. But yeah. Trump said, I think he looks beautiful in his jacket. So Trump is trying to, and of course, he also said, this is kind of funny, because Trump says, it's an honor to be with a very strong leader, a man who has been through a lot. And as he's saying that, as he's praising Zelensky, you should have seen, what's his name, J.D. Vance's face. I mean, J.D. Vance was really unhappy. It's like, don't praise Zelensky. Zelensky's the devil. I mean, that's what we heard from J.D. Vance and what J.D. Vance was advocating for so long. And now Trump is praising Zelensky. The J.D. Vance wing of the Republican Party does not like Zelensky. They love Putin. They do not like Zelensky. And J.D. Vance was not happy with Trump complimenting Zelensky in any way. All right. Oh, no. Where are we here? All right. Let's see. Talk about wars. It really does seem like the United States is gearing up for some kind of action in Venezuela. Trump has authorized the CIA to engage in covert operations in Venezuela. I assume with the goal of replacing Maduro. as we've talked about for a few months now, the United States is building up military naval resources bases in Puerto Rico, and they have moved a number of ships down into the southern Caribbean, not far from Venezuela coast. And of course they have blown up a number of boats, which they claim are carrying drug dealers, but nobody has suggested that they have any evidence or proof. And they don't seem to believe that they need any evidence or proof, which is bizarre and weird. I guess the American government now can just blow ships up wherever they want without having to prove anything. No trial, no declaration of anything, right? I mean, it's one thing to have a military operation to kill terrorists and have clear identification of who the terrorists are and have a whole hierarchy of wanted people. It's a completely different thing to go after drug cartels, supposedly anyway, and just blow up boats because you believe that they're carrying cocaine. I mean, there are plenty of ways to stop boats and confiscate the cocaine or the drugs, whatever it happens to be. I mean, there's been a number of pretty large arrests. I read about this, a pretty large arrest on the Pacific side, off the California coast, of boats smuggling drugs into the United States, and they found huge quantities of cocaine. They've arrested a lot of people. That's always been the way you do it. You don't just blow up boats, which is what the U.S. is doing. Anyway, there's a real military presence, and there's a lot of rhetoric. Also, there have been plans. The Maduro regime knows this, so they are getting their armed forces ready for some kind of American invasion or some kind of American effort. But at the same time, they're diplomatic efforts. Venezuela has offered the United States gold, and it's offered the United States oil in order to avoid a U.S. invasion. They also proposed that Maduro would step down from power in 3 years and hand over the authority to his vice president, who would complete Maduro's 6-year term. And the United States has rejected all these offers. So Venezuela is groveling. They're afraid. They're worried. And it really does look like we should expect some kind of military operation in Venezuela. Look, as I've said many times, I'm happy to see Maduro go. I have no problem with you using the United States covert operations or military in order to make him go. I just don't believe in putting any American lives at risk in order to make it happen. Whether Maduro is there or not is not a threat to the lives and property of Americans. It's a threat to the lives and property of Venezuelans. And it's not good for America. It would be better if Maduro was not there. But it's not a violation of rights, and therefore it's not a cause for war. Yeah, it's rare for me to be anti-war, but I guess people would say. But I'm for war when there's a real threat, and the enemy should be destroyed. Maduro is not a threat to the United States. He's an inconvenience, but he's not a threat. But it does look like it's going to happen. So sometime in the next few weeks, wouldn't be surprised if forces, I don't know how it would be done. I don't know anything about that part of the world in a sense of military, but that there will be some kind of attempted coup in Venezuela, supported by the United States, and potentially with troops on the ground. Maybe special forces, maybe CIA, hard to tell. Maybe a missile that just kills him. That's also possible. All right, that's Venezuela. This is kind of an interesting story. So, there have been cases in the past where the IRS has been used for political purposes, to go after political enemies. In particular, we know during the Obama administration that within the IRS there was an effort to not approve and retract nonprofit status from certain conservative organizations. And there's plenty of reason to believe over the many decades that enemies of the administration were audited more frequently than friends. Wouldn't be shocking. Trump, though, is now taking it to the next level. because all of those other effects were always covert. Nobody ever admitted to it. It was always, we never intended, or with the IRS case with the nonprofits, it was like, no, there was denial and blame to a lower level official. It was never kind of the official policy of the Obama administration. But now it actually looks like the Trump administration is trying to organize the IRS and suggest to the IRS that they go after enemies of the Trump administration. I mean, on Fox and Friends last month, Donald Trump said that Soros and others have funded left-leaning protesters, and he says we're going to look into Soros because I think it's a RICO case against him and other people, because this is more than like protests. It's real agitation, it's riots, whatever. And now they have actively engaged in trying to use the IRS for this purpose, which would be a full assault on policy, which is expressed in law, that the IRS should not be used for political purposes. But Trump is explicitly, they're trying to replace a longtime IRS kind of criminal investigation chief. They're trying to put in a political appointee there. They've got a list of people they want to go after. And again, it's not public, it's not policy, but it keeps being expressed by political people, and their appointments seem to suggest that that's exactly what they're going. I mean, President Nixon was impeached for attempting to abuse the IRS's power for political purposes. That was part of the impeachment. And but Trump seems to be wanting to ignore that, as always, and really go after them. But whereas, again, past administrations who did this, hid it, try to deny it, I don't think Trump will deny it. I don't think Trump will hide it. I think for Trump, this is what you do. It's the same as going after Comey and going after what's her name in New York and now going after Bolton. He does not deny using the Justice Department to go after his political rivals. He relishes it. He embraces it. He celebrates it. And that's a big difference. A big difference. Okay, finally, I want to tell you about something that I think is so inspiring and positive for a change, right? Something inspiring and positive. Somebody standing up on principle at a great cost, and yet standing up on principle against, I think, the thugs of the world. And this is a story of chess grandmaster Anna Muzicek, something like that. It's something like that. Let me just take a look here at what's going on. 1 second. I just want to have. I don't have as many screens open when I'm on the road because I just have my laptop. But all right, I see. We're about halfway to our first hour goal, guys. God, let's try to make that goal at least, if not more than that. But let's try to do that. Anyway, chess grandmaster Anna Mojcik, who's a young woman, is refusing to play in Saudi Arabia at a big chess tournament. She says, quote, "In a few days, I will lose 2 world titles back to back because I decided not to go to Saudi Arabia. I refuse to play by special rules, to wear an abaya, a head covering, to be accompanied by a man so I can leave the hotel, so I don't feel like a second-class person. I will follow my principles and not compete in the World Fast Chess and Blitz Championship where in just 5 days, I could have won more money than dozens of other tournaments combined. This is all very nasty, but the sad part is no one seems to care. Bitter feelings, but can't go back. So it's like she's all alone not to go to Saudi Arabia because of the way they treat women. Well, I support her for whatever it's worth, probably not much, but I support her. I think this is a courageous stand. I wish more people would take it. I would not go to Saudi Arabia or to Dubai or these other places because of this. Saudi Arabia is worse. You should not sanction this kind of behavior. You should not sanction a regime that puts in jail atheists, that treats women as second-class citizens in a variety of different ways. She expressed some of them. Yeah. This is important. Now, I read this, but it turned out that this happened a few years ago. It isn't new. It isn't happening now. But I can't remember if I talked about it when it happened. But if for some reason it's bubbled up into Twitter surface again, she's being criticized by lots of people for this. But this is good. This is important. She should be supported. I don't know what's going on with her today, so I'm not sure why it's suddenly making the rounds and suddenly being elevated. A number of people have been involved. It turns out that since then, right? So it's an old story, but a good one. So what the hell? Worth telling. I think it was 2017 or 2018, and I think I did cover it at the time, but worth covering again. Why have a tournament in barbaric nation? Because people don't have principles, and these, sports federations and these chess federations and all these other federations, they don't care, and they care about the money. Same reason they do the golf thing with Saudi Arabia. All they care about is the money. So they don't care about the principles, and it's great to see an athlete or a chess master or anybody stand up against the barbarism of these regimes and say, to hell with the money. To hell with the money. All right. Oh yeah, Waco says on the chat, and I think he's right, that it came up because Riyadh, I can't remember if we talked about this on the show or not, I definitely read about this. There's been a huge comedy festival, stand-up comedy festival in Riyadh, and a lot of American comedians went. A lot of them went. And some of them, when they came back, regretted going, but almost all of them went and didn't say anything. And they went, and this is a country that has no free speech. This is a country, again, that you could go to jail for a very long time for being an atheist. You could get killed for being an atheist. You could go for a very long time for criticizing Islam, or get killed for criticizing Islam. Blasphemy laws. This is a country that has no respect for freedom of speech. And to go there as a comedian and pretend that he does is a travesty and a betrayal. A betrayal of the people of Saudi Arabia, betrayal of comics in Saudi Arabia who cannot practice comedy in Saudi Arabia because they would go to jail for making jokes about, the rulers of Saudi Arabia. That is not something you can do. So that's why it came up again on Twitter, which is good, to show that there are some people out there, not many, but some, who still have principles, who still live by principles. All right, let's see. Lincoln Gaffney says, I should hand out Atlas Shrugged in Arabic in downtown Riyadh and see what happens. Well, first you'd have to translate it into Arabic. It's not in Arabic. Arabic and Farsi are the only two major languages in the world that Atlas Shrugged is not translated into. But then the reality of Arabic is that very few books are translated into Arabic. Of all the languages, Arabs don't read a lot. They don't read a lot of. This is part of the problem in their culture, is that they don't translate a lot of books. They don't get exposure to anything outside of their own narrow culture. Okay, that is the news for Friday, October 17th. By the way, there will not be a show tomorrow. I thought there would be, but traffic is going to be so bad here in Southern California. I'm driving south from LA, and formative thing in Camp Pendleton. It's 250 years of the Marines, and I guess Hegseth is going to be there, and maybe J.D. Vance, and missiles are going to fly, and live ammo, and all this stuff. And that's, if you've ever driven on the 5 down south Camp Pendleton, I mean, you drive right through Camp Pendleton, and so there are going to be massive traffic jams. So I'm going to have to leave very early, and I'm not going to be able to do a show tomorrow, unfortunately. But there will be a show on Monday. So no shows this weekend, but there will be a show on Monday and Tuesday, and then we'll see after that. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I think we'll also be able to do a show on Wednesday. I leave Wednesday will be an early show, but there will be a show. All right. Let's jump in to the Super Chat. Remind you, we have a Super Chat, support the show. If you find value in what I do, then please support the show. The show can't exist without your support. So it is crucial. Again, can't happen without you. And it's a trade, value for value. So I do these new shows and other shows, and you guys support it financially and make it possible for me to dedicate the time for this, value for value. So please consider supporting it. You can do a sticker. I know there are quite a few live listeners right now, or watchers right now, both on Twitter and on YouTube. So please consider supporting it. Jason says they sell Atlas Shrugged in the United Arab Emirates in English. Yeah. And there are plenty of Saudis who go to the UAE to drink. UAE is slightly more liberal, if you will, than Saudi Arabia. Still not good, but more liberal. And I guess you can drink in UAE, you can't drink in Saudi Arabia. All right, so do stickers, super chats, and don't forget to support the show on a monthly basis on Patreon. All right, let's jump in. Rob, who is very generous, supporting the show with 80 Australian dollars, and Australian dollars is only increasing in value relative to the US dollar. That's because the US dollar is sinking, not because the Australian dollar is increasing. Rob says, there's a pro cycling team owned by a Canadian Israeli called Israel Premier Tech. It has bucked to pressure to drop the Israel part of its name so it can safely compete next year following protests shut down this year's Tour of Spain. It's so sad. Yeah, I mean, it's horrible. It really is horrible. I just read a story about a basketball in Barcelona. So there was an Israeli team coming in to play Barcelona in basketball. Hapoel Tel Aviv or Hapoel something. And they had booked a hotel, and their hotel, their hotel was inundated with protests and with threats of violence, that the hotel canceled the reservation. So they booked a hotel outside of Barcelona, and they did it in secret, so nobody would know where the hotel was. Well, when they showed up and they played the game, which had demonstrators, hundreds of demonstrators, and they started rioting, and then the demonstrators somehow found out where the hotel was, and despite the fact it was outside about an hour from Barcelona, they went there, and they started harassing the hotel. They literally had to pack them up and under very, very heavy guard, transport them to another hotel. And this is the thing, that the Israelis are expected to compromise. Israelis now in Europe avoid speaking in Hebrew because they don't want to be identified as Israelis because they're afraid of what might happen. As we know, Israelis were attacked after the soccer game in Amsterdam. People are petrified. And the blame is always placed on the Israelis. Well, just keep a low profile. Why? What have they done? Defended Western civilization. That's what they're doing, defending Western civilization from the barbarians. But instead of going after the barbarians, instead of going after demonstrators, instead of locking them up, no, let's take the name off of the teams. Let's take the Israel name after the team, off of the team. Let's stop speaking Hebrew. Let's hide where they're staying. I mean, this is it really is. It's getting worse and worse and worse. It was bad 20 years ago with the Danish cartoons. It's only getting worse. Islam is only becoming a greater and greater potent force in Europe, a more militant, aggressive, violent, barbaric force. And we will see. We will see when the Europeans wake up to that and decide to silence this force. I think it'll happen, but they're taking their time. They're taking their time, and the reality is that if these European relatively liberal governments don't do it, then it will get done by illiberal governments, by more authoritarian governments of the right that are doing very well in the polls, and they will ultimately come to dominate European politics, and they will do it, and they will do it in a much more barbaric, much more violent way. If you want to save Europe, now's the time to deal with the Muslim problem. The more you delay it, the more you undermine the very nature of European society, even if, because what you get is a rise of anti-Western civilization values within the West among Europeans, who will then crush the Muslims. Now, you could still get the victory of Western civilization, but only if it wakes up to Islam. And if it doesn't, what you get is the victory of anti-Western civilization European forces. So it'll still be Europe, but it will not be Western Europe. It'll be medieval Europe. Communism is European, but it's anti-Western civilization. Fascism is European, but it's anti-Western civilization. And you're much more likely to get some kind of fascist, rising in response to Islam if it's not dealt with. Whereas if it's dealt with now, then the fascists don't have the number one issue that will bring them to power. You take away that issue from them. But you see the existing liberal. Let me just thank some of the stickers. Maxwell, thank you. Mary Aline, thank you. Glenn, thank you. Robert, thank you. Let's see. Normative Randroid, thank you. And that's it. All right, thank you guys. Thanks for the stickers. Still do stickers. We're crossed the hour mark, and we're not quite at our goal. We're $75 short of our goal for the hour. So please consider supporting the show, particularly if you can, $20, $50. That would be huge to get us to where we need to be. All right, Michael says Zoran Mamdani repeatedly accused Israel of genocide in last night's debate. If he wins, the amount of thugs he will let roam the streets will be cataclysmic. Do you predict a mass exodus of people from New York if he wins? No, I don't think New Yorkers will leave. Certainly not in the first couple of years, unless things get really, really, really bad. I think the only thing that will cause New Yorkers to leave is a sharp escalation in violence. Mamdani for now is saying he's going to keep the current police chief, who is pretty good, and has done, I think it's a she, done a really good job at actually reducing crime in New York. But we'll see if he can stick to that, right? So I don't think you'll see a mass exodus unless the violence increases. And I don't think it immediately increases, although it might over time. And I don't think New Yorkers raise their taxes, more filth in the streets, more homeless. I don't think people will leave. People love New York too much. And they also think Mamdani, it's a fad, it'll pass, and how bad could he be? This is why he's winning, right? How bad could he be? Look, we've had all these other mayors, we've survived. Look, he's getting over 50% of New Yorkers to vote for him. He's appealing to a lot of people who are fed up with the status quo, who are fed up with the Comos of the world, and are looking for something new and young and exciting. And it's not so new, socialism. Socialism's old, but it comes packaged in an exciting, charismatic character. And they're falling for it. They are falling for it. Tragic. PB, pro-Hamas protesters blocked roads and caused crashes in the September 3rd weekend Vuelta a España pro road race, where 2 stages were stopped early and 100,000 people swarmed the finish. The final stage was canceled with 55 kilometers left and no podium ceremony possible. Yeah, look, these people are barbarians, and they would like, they are quite happy to stop everything, to get their way, to kill Jews, to kick out the Israelis, to not have anything to do with this. This is barbarism. And the fact that the Spaniards can't put together enough police, and this is true of the Brits in Birmingham, to deal with them suggests that it's completely gotten out of hand. And this is one of the reasons why in Spain, if you had an election today, I think the far right would win a lot more votes. I think that if you had an election in the UK today, I think the right would win many, many more votes. I think Labour Party would be eviscerated. People don't want this. People don't want to be overrun by the barbarians. They're not ready for that. The majority of Europeans do not want to be overrun by Muslims. And they do not want to be overrun by a Muslim agenda. And they will stand up. It's just an evolving pattern. They're resisting going full on to some of these proto-fascist political parties or almost fascist political parties because they remember fascism and they don't like it. But if their center left, center right does not deal with the Muslim problem, then the fascists will win and they will deal with the Muslim problem. The peoples of Europe will not tolerate the Muslims. Not long term. Michael says, did you see Glenn Beck get hounded by anti-Semites at his Turning Point USA talk? I did not. I missed that. Young conservatives don't look up to Reagan. They look up to Nick Fuentes. Yeah, Nick Fuentes is the #1 podcast in America right now. Nick Fuentes, the slimy, anti-Semitic, racist creep, is the #1 podcast. I'm not talking about Joe Rogan. Nick Fuentes. You saw anti-Semitic rhetoric, anti-women rhetoric, just horrible, horrible human beings. These are the Republicans. Now, I warned you. I've warned you for almost 10 years that this was coming, that this was the inevitable direction that the Republican Party was going. And I will mention Charlottesville again, although every time I do that, I think a bunch of people unsubscribe. But you could see it in Charlottesville. You could see the sympathy with which too much of the Republican, MAGA people surrounding Trump, the sympathy with which they accepted Charlottesville. And wink, wink, hint, hint, that Trump gave it. And so that the alt-right, the racist right, the anti-Semitic right, the barbaric right, the Founding Fathers anti-American right has grown and grown. And I was told at the time, the thing about groypers and the thing about the alt-right is that they're cool. They're fun. Now, usually they're cool and fun for, incels, lonely men who have no clue and no ability with women. But whatever it is gaining power. It is gaining strength. Right? And you're seeing more and more of it. And I was talking to a friend of mine who teaches at university, and he's saying, oh yeah, the sympathy for the crazy right, for fascism, for Hitler, among young conservatives right now is off the charts, and they have no historical context by which to judge this. But there's a real problem. There's a real problem among young people on the right now, particularly almost all men or boys, where they are attracted to the worst of the far right, to the worst elements on the far right. That Doodle Bunny, for a guy so passionate about tech, you regularly have issues with audio and video. Yep, you got a solution? Hopper Campbell, it perplexes me in a post-Enlightenment and post-Ayn Rand world, Western civilization is still saturated with Christianity. Yes, and that's fundamentally the problem, that even the secularists are all Christian in the sense that they've all adopted Christian morality. I mean, socialism is a Christian ideology. Communism ultimately is a Christian ideology. So Christianity is everywhere and dominant, and there's a lot of work to do, and it's very difficult to uproot, particularly in America. It's very, very difficult to uproot. Faith and altruism are very difficult, it turns out, to get rid of. I always thought it would be much easier, but it's turned out to be, really hard. James, what exactly was Millet's mistake? Haven't his policies been a resounding success? Should he not have taken a bailout from Trump no matter what is going on with his currency? I don't know enough about what's going on in Argentina to tell you what the mistake is. I mean, the fact that the peso is still floating against the dollar, and the fact that the government is still trying to manipulate the peso 2 years after Millet has been elected suggests something wrong, that they should have found a way to either get rid of the peso or peg the peso to the dollar, to control the value of the peso in some reliable way. And what happened really is nothing economic. What really happened is Millet lost an election. And when he lost that election, a lot of the confidence faded and people started selling the peso, which created real economic problems within Argentina. Argentina, one of the reasons it was gaining was that people were willing to sell their dollars and buy pesos and participate in the local economy instead of burying dollars in their mattress. They were willing to deposit dollars into their checking accounts in Argentinian banks instead of burying it in the mattress in foreign bank accounts. And that rejuvenated parts of to some extent, the Argentine economy. Well, once there was lost confidence, a lot of that got reversed, and that really hurt the economy. I mean, there are other things that could have happened. I just don't know. I mean, part of the problem is that Millet does not have the legislative ability to pass a lot of his reforms. He can only do what he can do. So, should he have accepted the bailout? He probably should have. Probably there's no cost to Argentina for accepting it. There's no downside for it. And it does buy him some time, and hopefully he can win in October, this month, in a week, in 10 days he can win. And if he wins there, confidence will come back. He'll have the legislative power to start passing reforms, and he can really do the deep reforms that the Argentine economy needs to take Argentina to the next level and next step. I would have expected by now, just as an aside, that all tariffs, both taxes on imports and export, would be eliminated. And that hasn't happened yet for some reason. But again, I'm not familiar enough with the intricacies of the Argentinian economy to have a strong opinion. Linda, don't forget to thumbs up the show to help Yaron's algorithm. Please help the algorithm. It's not my algorithm, it's YouTube's algorithm. Helps my show on their algorithm if you give it a thumbs up. And if you engage, any engagement is good, but thumbs up is in particular good. Like the show. Linda, Trump is backpedaling again at Taco. He claims U.S. needs to stay stocked up. Yeah, I mean, he constantly does this. He did it again with China because the stock market went down and crypto went down, and he's saying, oh yeah, I know the 100% tariffs, they're not sustainable. It won't last for very long. And he's backtracking because he doesn't like when markets respond negatively to what he says or does. Depot with Diego, what are the consequences of the military conflict between the Taliban and Pakistan? And what consequences did it have for the region at large? I mean, it really is hard to tell. The consequence of the region at large is the question that really has to be top of mind is to what extent is India involved with the Taliban in Afghanistan? And to what extent is Pakistan fighting a proxy war with Afghanistan really as part of a fight with India? What you don't want is a war between Pakistan and India. That could be a nuclear war. Both parties have nuclear weapons. Both parties have, I don't know. I would worry about the potential of them actually using a nuclear warhead. If it's just Pakistan and Afghanistan, it probably doesn't have that many ramifications. China is trying to get a foothold both in Afghanistan and in Pakistan and with India. So China's all over that region as well, but it has certain conflicts with the Indians, and it's closing up to everybody else. And of course, Al-Qaeda and ISIS and other Islamist terrorist organizations that are in Afghanistan benefit from the uncertainty and the fighting and the mayhem that exists there. So, nothing good is going to come of this, but nothing terrible will come of it unless it spreads to a full-fledged conflict with India. Jason, Trader Vic in Abu Dhabi was my refuge when I lived there, 2000, 2003. They allowed about 14 bars in the city, all joined to hotels or golf clubs. We had passbooks for home consumption, rationed by income. I wonder how much that has changed. I mean, the fact is that Dubai has changed, Abu Dhabi generally has changed dramatically since 2000 or 2003. Over the last 20 years, there's massive construction, I think some reforms. So I'm curious, Jason, if you know if it's different today than when you were there. Rez, what is your opinion of the Department of Homeland Security in the United States? Should it be a thing, or is it just another alphabet agency adding more to the restrictions of true liberty in the United States? Yeah, it's a horrible entity. It's the largest of all the governmental agencies, other than the Defense Department. It was cobbled together by Bush after 9/11, taking a lot of different agencies from a lot of different other departments and putting them all under one thing. So immigration, fighting terrorism, and all of that, customs, all of that put under one. TSA, of course, TSA became a big deal. I think it's horrible. I think TSA is overly protective. I think ICE should be disbanded, which is part of their Homeland Security. I think that border protection should be dramatically simplified by legalizing immigration. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely an agency that is engaged in massive restrictions of true liberty in the United States. No question about it. It's one of the worst, and it's getting worse by the day, given what ICE is doing. So in that sense, it just is truly horrific. Andrew says, why did Leonard Peikoff think that existentialism was the perfect name for objectivism if it hadn't already been taken? Look, I mean, you'd have to ask Leonard, but so I'll give you my interpretation or my recollection of what he said, although I don't have a perfect recollection of it. I mean, I think it's basically this is the philosophy of existence exists. We are about existence and existing. A whole moral framework is about the choice between existing or not existing, and survival or not survival, which is basically existing or not existing. And the way in which we exist is by recognizing that existence exists. and that A is A, and we can only use reason in order to take it. So I think of the basic choice that man faces: existence or going out of existence. And so I think that's why he thought it. Andrew, you know the expression "truth hurts"? If knowing the truth was essentially a painful experience, mankind wouldn't have the will to survive. Man pursues the truth because knowing the truth is good. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the reality is that, I mean, what does it mean? What does truth mean? It means that I know this is food, not poison. I know that the path I'm working on is a path that won't lead me to fall off a cliff. It means that when I cross the street, if I look and I don't see a car coming, then there's no car coming and I can cross the street safely. Every single thing that human beings do, everything that we do, depends on us accepting truth. So it can be the truth hurts. Now, it's said in the context of, sometimes knowing reality, you know how bad life is, or how bad your life is, or how you've been betrayed, or in those contexts. But even then, what is the alternative? Yes, the truth in those contexts might hurt, but the non-truth hurts much more. Much, much, much more. The lack of truth is destructive. Right? So the truth is always a good thing. It doesn't always feel good, because sometimes you discover things you don't want to know. You'd rather not know, in a sense. But you do need to know, because not knowing is worse than knowing. Not knowing is worse than knowing. Somebody cheated on you. Yeah, it's painful to discover that somebody cheated on you, but it's much more painful to be cheated on and not know. Much more painful. You can't do anything about it if you don't know it. All right, guys, I think that is the last question. Don't have any more. Have time, but no questions. You guys are skimpy on questions lately. Don't know what's going on. All right. Thank you to all the super chatters. Really appreciate the support. Don't forget, those of you who are listening and not here live and supporting, you can go to Patreon, or you can go to PayPal and support the show on a monthly basis, on a regular basis. I will be back on Monday with another news show. We might do 2 shows on Monday, because I also want to do. I've got a sponsored show to do a show on Margaret Thatcher. It is her birthday, I think, this weekend. All right, everybody. I will see you on Monday. Have a fantastic weekend. Fantastic weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Bye, everybody.